On Connected Farmer, we have again Jerry Gidel from Midland Research. China has just surpassed Mexico as the top importer of U.S. corn. And yet, why the price of U.S. corn has increased? Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe. Jerry, so China has just surpassed Mexico as the top importer of U.S. corn. Are you surprised by that?
Not totally. No, Mexico has been our good customer here for the last 3 or 4 years. Actually, Japan was that before, and it keeps rotating. But with the combination of very high prices in China, and that seems to be something involving maybe some of the corn that's coming out of reserve is not as much as they thought. We've had quite a few typhoons that's hit various areas there. Of course, we heard about the Yangtze Valley, but that's really not where corn's at. That's in the Northeast, and there's been 2 or 3 of them go up through the North China Sea, I should say, and up into Manchuria in the Northeast. And there's quite concerns about that along the way. And so we had another sale today of 175 million bushels. Actually, it went to Mexico, but there's other things floating around in here. And I really do sense that there's lots of controversy going around the fact that the USDA hasn't seen that the change of their official WTO non-tariff limits there, but I think it's a semantic situation. I think Sinagrain and COFCO are buying this stuff, moving it into the reserves, and then moving it out of reserves. So officially, it doesn't have to have that the cost of the grain being higher on the import than the U.S. Plus, there's plenty of room. Let's don't get concerned about that. Their prices are substantially higher than our Gulf prices at this point internally.
And according to your colleague Jack Scoville, the wheat has been the driver for this corn price upside.
Yes, wheat's been helpful. The correlation between wheat feeding versus corn, if wheat prices for human consumption are stronger than that, and particularly the fact that we've had significant dryness in Argentina that's caused concerns. Actually, Rosario this week went ahead and reduced their crop expectations from 18 to 17 million metric tons. I think the USDA is still around 18. To be frank, I don't remember exactly that total. Also, dryness has continued to be a factor, and there's a lot of concern at this point that usually there's enough moisture to get the stuff planted in Black Sea, even though there's been some dryness over the years. And right now, there's even some commentary earlier this week. There's only been 10 or 15% less plantings. And that is interesting because at this point, their winter starts setting in a little sooner than even here in the U.S. So you do need to get in the ground and up and having some kind of ability to go into dormancy. And there is a possibility that they'd have to shift some of their winter wheat seedings to spring. And that tends to mean that you have less production. Their spring wheat varieties just aren't as strong in yield as they are for winter wheat. So the wheat side of things have definitely helped the corn in that. And also I think there's been a constantly a murmur out in the country. I can't say that I really heard a lot of yields this year like I sometimes do, but in this case, this corn on corn yields in the U.S. have really been hurt either from rootworm or dryness or things of that nature, derecho, hurting corn yields in the West. So, we have really nickel and dime the yields potential. Now, some people are thinking they're going to see these yields stay the same this coming month. I guess don't have enough information to say that on corn or even beans at this point. I kind of feel like that we still could have some drifting lower in these yields when we get to the November USDA report.
Jerry is located in Chicago, and Jerry, please tell us a little bit what your contacts are saying about the yields both in Iowa and Illinois.
Well, as I said, I kind of really feel like that the yields on corn is just they're just not as snappy as they were a couple years ago to meet the USDA's high yield projections. Do I think we're going down below 175 on the U.S. number? No. But even moving from 178 down to 176 or down to 175 and a half, back to some number that's slightly below the record level, is still going to make things interesting on carryover stocks. At this point, we're just a smidgen under 2.2, and the carryover stocks in the U.S., I think, will at least be noted if we did slip down below. Below 2 billion. And the export world is really one of those areas. I don't think we're going to see a lot of increase from the USDA's feed usage numbers. Ethanol, I think, is kind of stalled here right around 5 billion, I should say. And that's so if we're going to find more demand, it's going to be from these overseas areas such as maybe China or, other areas of the world that's going to need to buy U.S. that maybe bought from Ukraine or bought from Argentina and things like that. So I kind of feel like that we do have a chance for some expanded exports on corn from there. Beans, that's an interesting one at this point. This whole late season dryness is really one of those features that is hard to really go ahead and pinpoint on people's yields until they really get it finalized and in their bin from there, particularly if you don't have the test weights on some of these beans until you run them across the scale. And boy, if you take a 60-pound normal bushel when you sell it and you only have test weights because of the dryness that are in the 54, 55, 56 pound per area, that's a significant kind of reduction in the total number of pounds you're selling. And so that ultimately means you have less yield. And that's a feature that we've got to continue to look at. We had quite a jump this last week, over 60% from 38 on harvesting. I would expect this week, even with the weather turning a little cooler here in the U.S., that we'll probably be pushing on up to I would think probably 75 to 80%. The one thing that does run into us here is we got some of these double crop beans around the country, and that so they're a little later on harvesting those. So that could slow down our big jump in percentages as people maybe switch over to corn here, waiting for those secondary crops after wheat or other after wheat primarily.
Jerry, we are seeing a delay on the soybean planting in Brazil, and that would force, if that continues, that would force the corn planting in Brazil to miss the window. So, do you think corn can have a better upside because of that?
Oh, I think that's a definite feature that it definitely makes things next spring quite interesting here. As we go through the next 2 or 3 months in here, we're going to try to come up with ideas about plantings in the U.S. We've definitely had 10 or, actually, I think we're around 11 or 12 million worth of prevent plantings here that we didn't get planted last year. Lots of people are trying to figure out how that's all going to sort itself out. Definitely beans are going to grab a big percentage of it. Corn's right now it's not getting too much excitement. I think it will pick up a little more interest in that. The one thing that we do have in this thing is that the impact of derecho and all the volunteer corn and things of that nature, and that you can do a little better weed control sometimes, or at least in the past you have been able in the corn crop. But boy, this corn on corn situation is kind of up and down. But I've been preaching that story you just brought up about the impact of the corn output from second crop corn in Brazil could be very, very up and down here. We've had issues in the past. We've kind of skated by them the last couple times. We've had a little delay here, but this one's quite significant. The last I've heard, and maybe you've got a better level on this, maybe 4 or 5% is all that we've got going, and maybe it's a little higher than that by the end of the week for Mato Grosso plantings, and we're talking traditionally 20, 25%. And that's quite significant. What that wow, does that make excitement about the yield? Yeah, maybe. The biggest thing about it is it really takes all those January and first half February beans and kind of pushed them all the way into late February and March. And that's really what's happened with the Chinese here in their latest buying spree. They moved from just having beans bought through December to now buying January and February. And that's why our numbers are pretty significant here in the U.S. And I think that's the real key to the soybean side of the issue. And on corn, it puts things quite vulnerable and could make a significant situation next spring. It's hard to say that's a $5 item, but the way things are going, if we have problems in Ukraine, we have problems in Argentina on getting the crops together. The U.S. at this point wants to plant more beans because of high prices. Wow, corn might be a sneaky one.
Do you agree that the ones that decided to grow more corn in the U.S., they should have a bigger eye year over year over the Brazilian corn plantings, right?
Oh, you would think that the increase in the U.S. corn planting should be a little bit stronger than what might occur here in Brazil, because I think there's going to be a lot of people saying, oh, it's getting late here. I'm not sure I want to put this second crop corn in. Even when we get to that February, well, in most cases, really, most of the second crop corn in Mato Grosso really needs to be in by the 1st of March. If it's not there by then, you are really pushing the old finger on the trigger there about what it can happen. So that could be another twist of it. Louis, you've picked up another issue in this corn market that has combinations of plantings and yields and everything along the way. The corn side of this thing is, as I said before, is the sleeping giant, and you do a good job of pointing out all the issues that could hit it.
And what do you expect for the week that it's about to start?
Boy, that's an interesting one. We've had two markets, corn and wheat, that went out to new highs of this fall, the December wheat and December corn. Beans didn't get there. That's part of the reason we had a little profit taken today is that, oh, well, that your technical rules say that, well, if you, going into the weekend, you should take some profit. From there, next week we don't have any reports. We don't have anything else. We got to worry about Chinese buying and the weather concerns around the world. That type of thing are going to be the major factors. It could be a choppy one here, I guess, for the coming week. From there, it's hard to. We've had some very, very strong markets here. We're up in 8, 9, 10 weeks on some of these things. Every once in a while, you kind of go sideways, but I don't know. Maybe this is the week.
Yeah. Jerry, we appreciate your time. I know you are about to miss your train, so thanks a lot.
Yes. Well, thanks again, Louis. It's always good to talk. Hopefully we've provided some information to everybody, and we'll see you next week.